With all this talk about Harvey Weinstein being fired in the wake of years and years of sexual harassment claims, it finally came to a head with one report. More and more people are speaking out, including Terry Crews. He, who you might know from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, he's had actually multiple really successful TV shows like Everybody Hates Chris and Are We There Yet? He's getting paid. Terry Crews went on Twitter and gave his account of a time he himself was sexually harassed. He said, this whole thing with Harvey Weinstein is giving me PTSD. Why? Because of this kind of thing happened to me. My wife and I were at a Hollywood function last year and a high-level Hollywood executive came over to me and groped my privates. He goes on, he just grinned like a jerk. I was gonna kick his ass right then, but then I thought twice about how that whole thing would appear. 240-pound black man stomps out Hollywood honcho would be the headline the next day. Only I probably wouldn't have been able to read it because I would have been in jail, so we left. He then later says, he called me the next day with an apology, but never really explained why he did what he did. I decided not to take it further because I didn't want to be ostracized, par for the course. When the predator has power and influence, I let it go, and I understand why many women who this happens to let it go. He went on, we'll talk about more of it, but what do you guys think about this statement?
I mean, it just shows it can happen to anyone. I mean, Terry Crews, I'm sure you all have an image of him in your head, is like this big, muscular dude.
Yeah.
And for something like that to happen to him, and even him being too afraid to say something at that time, I don't know. It's just really telling, and it helps me understand why people may not want to speak out when things like that happen to them.
And it does illustrate the rampant abuse of power within Hollywood, because that's something, you know, that we really should be talking about is power dynamics, and a lot of the people who maybe are only just coming forward are coming forward because they feel like there is sort of a strength in numbers, and if they were on their own, then they would feel powerless, and maybe it would be the end of their careers. And Terry Crews has a career, and even he felt powerless to really do anything or speak out in fear that maybe it could be the end of his career. So it's good that we're talking about it. I'm happy that he came forward, and just holding the industry that you're in accountable is so important.
Yeah. I agree. I think what's awesome about Terry Crews coming is because you don't expect someone, and not to say that sexual assault or that sort of thing has a regular face, like, oh, that person looks like they'd be the victim of sexual assault. But as you said, Darren, y'all know what Terry Crews looks like. You know, he's a big man. And Grace, you said that, you know, power struggle. I mean, here on Pop Sugar, we have talked about that power struggle, and I think I've talked about that several times before. And the fact that people, they want a career, they want to have longevity in Hollywood, and it's sometimes the necessary evil to be successful is put up with shit like this. So I think Terry Crews coming forward gives a whole new face and sheds a whole new light on it. And also for men, because people think that this doesn't happen to men, you know, and that would have been my 5 words. It happens to men too.
There's a movie called LA Confidential, which is about, you know, back in, I forget if it's the 30s or 40s, but like there's a scene about this with a guy who comes to Hollywood and he gets taken, he ends up dead, it's part of the movie, but like there's a reference to it happening back then, and it's as old as Hollywood itself, and it's as old as power itself, it seems.
Yeah.
He said, Terry Crews writes, who's gonna believe you? Few. What are the repercussions? Many. Do you wanna work again? Yes. Are you prepared to be ostracized? No. Like, that's what's so frustrating.
Well, just that he is coming forward now after we're having this difficult conversation, but it does make me wonder, and there's no way to be sure, how would we treat this had he come forward before we knew about Harvey Weinstein, before the New York Times published their piece about that? Would we have been as, you know, as compassionate? I hope so, I certainly hope so, but part of me wonders like, oh, Terry Crews, like this 240-pound guy was like sexual, it was like groped, like, oh, come on, like get over it. And so I think that it's important that he come forward with his story, and that we listen to and we give our ears and our just compassion and empathy for people who are subjected to this abuse of power?
Grace, that's a great question, because when you are a brand, Terry Crews is a brand. Dude's the face of Old Spice. Terry Crews' brand is masculinity into some hyper masculinity, right? So your question was, how would we have treated this had he come forward 5 years ago? I feel like, and I'm no expert, but just me thinking about it, it would have, his power, probably the powers that be, that his team would have been like, you know what, this is bad for your brand, because now you're saying when people talk about sexual assault, again, about power, right? Terry Crews emits this image of power. So is he giving away this power now coming forward? That's a great question. I think 5 years ago, that possibly could have been very detrimental to his career and the brand of Terry Crews.
We just do it now. Let's do it now. Let's get everyone who has had a story, let's just come forward with it now. Because otherwise it's just gonna happen. I mean, there is that overwhelming feeling of like, that's just Hollywood, man. There's always a casting couch. And I was talking to someone about it who brought up the point, like, it's not just the Harvey Weinsteins. Of course, the Harvey Weinstein is the big problem. It is the main problem. It's Harvey Weinstein is the person who's doing it, but it's also everyone who knows about it and doesn't say anything.
Enablers.
It's the person who blows Harvey Weinstein, who, like, for every woman who's like, I'm not gonna do this, there are people, I mean, someone brought this up where it's like, there's people out there who fucking fuck Harvey Weinstein to get ahead in this game.
Exactly. I think that's what we were talking about last time, Jason, is there's always gonna be like this fresh new crop of actors and actresses that will literally do anything, you know, to
get there,
to advance their career to the next level. And you know, regardless of if, you know, all these veteran actors and actresses are you know, saying things now, you know, like you said, there's you know, a busload of fresh actors and actresses that will literally do anything. So I think until their mentality changes, I don't know if you can catch everybody that's doing it.
And that's not putting any less blame on Harvey Weinstein. Let's be very clear about that. You're not putting any less blame. It's just pointing out all the different
like little aspects.
Right. And it's tough because you look at one of them was Ashley Judd. Another, now you're learning, Gwyneth Paltrow, Cara Delevingne came out with her story.
Angelina Jolie.
Angelina Joe fucking Lee.
Joe fucking Lee.
There is a point at which they were the powerless actress. And they felt like they were missing out. And the reason they didn't say anything was because people like Harvey Weinstein were saying, you know what? I have the power to end you in this town, to make sure you don't go anywhere. And while Angelina Jolie wasn't able to take down Harvey Weinstein now, and Ashley Judd wasn't, or back then, and wasn't able to do it then, now all these women, all these men like Terry Crews are able to come together and be that force that turns back and goes like, no, we can end you in this business now. And we can take people like you and the cancer that you are and cut it out.
Yeah, it makes me think of all the layers that there are to this problem. It's like a rotting onion. And we found out about like a big chunk of the onion was Harvey Weinstein, but there's so much more that we need to cleanse from the industry. And it is encouraging when you hear more and more high profile, lower profile. I mean, just if you follow things on Twitter, there are writers coming forward. There are assistants, production assistants, like from every aspect of the industry coming forward. And it is encouraging when you see this banding together of a community that we can try and change the industry for the better, but it's not gonna be easy because this has been so ingrained in the culture for years and years and years, and it's not okay.
It's gonna become, it's like evil evolves. It's like with racism. So, you know, instead of having blatant racism in your face, now you have more covert, more sinister racism. That's the same thing that's gonna happen with this. Now people are gonna find clever and more what's the word I'm looking for?
Sinister, clandestine,
ways of doing this, because there's always going to be snakes in the grass. There's always going to be snakes.
And lastly, like
education's key.
This is a little thing that's sort of irked me that I have seen people talking about. When a man is coming forward to be an ally, which I think is incredibly important, because obviously, as we're talking about today, this is not just a women's issue. Sexual harassment can affect anyone. You don't need to have a sister, a mom, a wife, a daughter to understand that women are worthy of not being sexually harassed in the workplace. So every statement that says I'm
everyone's glomming on to this Duca, whatever she said, and that's not fair. Like, I get what you're saying. And I don't. It's a thing where everyone starts with like, here's a reason I can. Here's something they're saying to be like, this is they came to see it at one point, and it sucks that it took them having a daughter or a wife to see it, but they're seeing it, they're an ally, right? You're gonna say, I just don't like how it's turned, and this is a thing that I hate, is when people now go against their allies in this fight against the common enemy.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that you don't need, you shouldn't have to have a close relationship with, a familial relationship with a woman to be an ally. I think that allyship is incredibly important. I mean, it's why, honestly, I'm still alive today to be, this, Darren. So allyship is incredibly important, but you also shouldn't have to be I'm an ally because this. Be an ally because you're an ally. Why do you need to qualify it? That's what I think is strange.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm all for everyone being allies. It's just this weird snap back against people who are well, you want to know one of the reasons, not all of the reasons, but one of the reasons why it is a more real thing than a conceptual thing for me is because I have a wife, I have a daughter.
Well, that would be a fair statement, but one of the many reasons why. But if you're as a father to a daughter,
it's just not in there. It's just that your argument isn't there. It isn't in what's written. It's just they're not saying the only reason, no one's writing the only reason that I care about this now is because I have a wife and I have a daughter. They're saying I have a wife, I have a daughter, I see this borne out firsthand. I understand because of real things that I've seen. I get it. What you're saying is not at odds with what these people are saying, but it's just become another beat, as you've seen in this discussion here, off to the side. And why are we not all allies together? When someone says I'm an ally, you don't need to first go fuck you.
Well,
they're allies now.
I'm not saying that I agree with people that do that, though.
All right, it's just that's what I've seen, and it's all from one tweet that everyone now feels they need to take a moment to kind of mention this thing.
One tweet that I saw.
All right, agree to disagree.
I don't even know
probably
what tweet you're referencing, to be honest.